Federal government set to enforce recovery of 5 trillion naira APCON debts. Central bank boosts forex market with additional $210 million. Now, 20,000 youths and women in 6 states are empowered in agro-processing productivity enhancement and livelihood support projects, just as U.S. and China end trade talks Wednesday. This is Business Express. We are reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Amina Nujaim. Thank you for joining us today. A new task force has been set up to ensure the effective recovery of over 5 trillion being outstanding debts owed the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON. Vice President Yemi Oshinbajo said this at a meeting with board members and management of AMCON and selected heads of government agencies at the Presidential Villa. He said a special task force committee comprising of heads of AMCON, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission EFCC, and the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission ICPC, and the Ministry of Justice will be working to develop and implement new strategies that will ensure speedy recovery of the debts. Nigeria's mobile network operators lost 332 million active internet users as number of active internet users dropped to 122.29 million at the end of June. This was revealed by the Nigerian Communications Commission NCC in its latest data release. This is less than the number of users recorded in May. 3.22 million new internet users were added. The data shows that Globacom added the highest number of internet users, followed by Airtel, while 9 Mobile lost the highest number of internet users. Government will need to gain more public trust and confidence to ensure efficient service delivery in key sectors of the economy in line with globally acceptable practices. Experts who spoke to NTA on government's privatization efforts say it was indeed the right decision, selling off assets that were not yielding positive results to the private sector, driven to enable the country retain jobs and generate revenue through practical means.
I believe that the only way to continue is to do more of the privatization and from whatever lessons that have been learned to improve the process along the way.
The system will hold people accountable for things that are done so that when people come in and they collect, they'll be able to even do. People should come forward with integrity, even before they receive and after they have received.
Privatization remains a key component of reform process of structures and economies around the world. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has defended its policy restricting foreign exchange access to importers of milk. The Apex Bank says there were attempts by some interests who felt hurt by the planned policy aimed at promoting local production of milk to mislead the public by misrepresenting the unassailable case for investment in local milk production and the medium to long-term benefit of the planned policy. The CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele last week gave reasons for the restriction of the forex supply for milk imports, bringing the number of items so far classified to 43.
For over 60 years, Nigeria has been importing milk. Today, the import of milk annually stands at between $1.2 to $1.5 billion. That is a very high import product into the country. Given that it is a product that we are convinced can be produced in the country because, and let's ask ourselves the question, what really does it take to produce milk? Get a cow and give the cow plenty of water to drink and let the cow eat a lot of grass, and the cow positioned in a place without roaming around, that cow gets fat and you can take milk out of it. The reason some say our cows are not producing much milk is because our cows roam around, they don't have water to drink. Under the pastoralist arrangement, you find that during rainy season they are somewhere. When the rainy season recedes and the dry or hot season comes, they begin to move from where they are. And then as they move, just like they are cows and they are not human beings, they consume whatever they find on their way. But unfortunately in that process, they create destruction to farm products and farm produce in the country. Integrate backwards and begin a process of development and producing your milk in Nigeria. There are obviously two schemes. Either the West African milk or the milk importers acquire land and begin to graze their own cows and then fatten them and take the milk. And then, of course, they can also be complemented by the pastoralists who own their own smallholder under a smallholder farming livestock farming arrangement.
What does the restriction of forex for importation of milk mean for Nigeria's dairy production and the economy? What should be expected? Find out in our chat, which I previously had. Let's listen. Political economist Soji Apampa joins us to look at the gaps, opportunities and potentials in the Nigerian dairy market. He is the Country Director, Business Innovation Facility. Good to see you on Business Express today.
Thank you.
Okay, what would you say the size of Nigeria's dairy demand is, and how much is Nigeria spending to import this nutritional product to the country?
The overall demand is of the order of 1.7 billion, not million, billion liters a year, of which Nigeria only produces about 600 million. So there is a demand gap of 1.1 billion liters. And if you take the pricing, current pricing 120 naira to 150 naira per liter, it translates to about $600 million. But that's before counting other dairy products like butter, like cheese, and so on, which could take that figure all the way to about $1.2 billion per annum.
600 million, you said Nigeria is producing. Do we have the capacity to meet local demand?
Yes, we do. If you look at the number of heads of cattle that we actually have, we have enough cows. But having the cows doesn't mean you have the milk, because the biggest challenge is water and fodder. Access to water is a big problem for the animal husbandry in Nigeria, and also access to the right nutritional fodder for them to produce. So our cows do from as little as 0.1 liter of milk a day, all the way to maybe 1 or 1.5, from a breed that can give us 6 liters a day. So you can see that they can produce at least 6 more.
Are you then saying that there are some cows that produce more milk than others, or it's about how you take care of the cow?
It's both. You have species that genetically produce more milk.
Okay.
So you have lots of the imported breeds are able to do 10 liters, 20 liters, some even as high as 30 liters. But it's still the management. But our local breeds are still underperforming for their own genetic type.
Now, talking about
Yes.
building the sector, why would you say investment in the sector has been unattractive?
It has been unattractive simply because people do not know what leads to improvements, what leads to increased income, what leads to the right returns, which is what we have focused on for the last 4 years under the Business Innovation Facility, looking at what will spur increases in milk yield from the cows. So we introduced something called Napier grass, which was planted in Kachia Grazing Reserve in Kaduna State, and the cattle that were fed exclusively on this this grass type moved from less than 1 liter of milk a day to between 2 and 3 liters of milk a day, almost tripling the incomes of the owners of the cattle in the process. So there's still room for them to move from 3 liters to 6 liters, but there's a different constraint, which is when you then get the milk, what do you do with it? Because even with the milk they were getting, they weren't able to sell.
That brings me to my next question. The value chain approach seems to come into your response just now.
Yes.
So from research, extension
Yes.
services to markets, is
Yes.
the atmosphere right to address some of these challenges that you're talking about?
Yes. In fact, it's not only right, we have proven that you can change some things and it can really improve the fortunes of the local herdsmen. Let's start with in Ladoga. They now process their own milk into yogurt with their own brand in hygienic ways. They are the first consumers of their own product now, and they now have buyers from town who go to the grazing reserve and take up 3 out of 5 days production. Is sold out already. Kano Dairy Union has copied them and now has orders of about 30,000 liters. That's a whole petrol tanker worth a day. So it is possible if you can link them to the formal chain. But what links them is hygiene, milk handling, pasteurization, changing the form so that it is preserved, because we don't have a cold chain, no cold chain to preserve the milk. So the infrastructure that will enable the whole industry to go on, electricity is not there. And it's the electricity you need to set up a cold chain. You can set up a cold chain from Lagos all the way to Kano, so that people can store their products as they're going along without breaking the chain and keeping it healthy enough, which is why most people don't buy fresh milk from the supermarkets, because they're concerned about hygiene,
Yes.
they're concerned about various things. So again, there's a lot of marketing that still needs to go in before people improve confidence. But in terms of what needs to be done, the problems have been solved. We only need to now replicate the solutions countrywide.
Right. What
Yes.
would you say the relationship is between the processing arm of the industry and how that affects the consumer?
Okay, now, processing arm of the industry, some require your fresh milk. If you make yogurt from fresh milk, it has a much better taste than from powdered milk.
Okay.
So if they can get the right quantity, they'll throw away importation and they'll stop importing. They will use the local one because it's a much better product. Also, from powdered milk, you can never make butter. Without the real butter fat that comes from the milk, you can't produce butter, you can't produce cheese. There's so many products that you can't produce. So the processors want it. However, there are some products that require powdered milk as the starting point. So, for instance, Milo, Bonvita, they use powdered milk in the formulation. So if for any reason you can't have access to powdered milk anymore, then you are really going to damage those products.
Yeah.
And those are very popular products amongst all Nigerians generally. So we really ought to be careful what we do policy-wise in order not to damage the public interest in trying to improve the interest of one party. Because even MACBAN put out a statement just a few days ago saying it doesn't help their interests, this ban that is being contemplated.
Talking about interests.
Yes.
with such a large industry,
Yes.
I'm looking at employment of Nigerians. If you had to put a number, what would it be?
Okay.
If just that sector were to employ Nigerians, how much productivity and economic growth are we looking at?
First of all, you will not have enough Nigerians to work in the sector. And let me tell you why. The processing of 1,000 liters, they've got the capacity in Ladoga Grazing Reserve. You have 15 people directly hired who are working in the factory. You've got another 10 who are the motorcycle boys who go around to collect the milk. Then you have another 14 people, bicycle, who distributes the finished product. So you get up to 40 something people already, and they're processing just 1,000 liters. Now I'm talking about 1.1 billion liters of milk a year. So if you multiply that out, you'll be talking 100 and something million people that you require. So it's the employment potential is huge. Before talking about value adding jobs that you could be doing, that's just processing. So before you get to the high end, some people need to be in marketing. Some people need to be in the manufacture of the aluminium canisters. In fact, the factory in Ladoga was completely produced from scratch in Kaduna. That's another job. That's a whole other value chain in itself.
Smuggling comes to mind.
Yes.
If the product is going to be regulated at some level,
Yes.
how do we check smuggling?
Okay. I think the smuggler is going to lose. Why? Milk is 88% water. Liquid milk is 88% water. So what they'll be smuggling, the sheer volume, they're just carrying 88%
Let's bear in mind
water.
that there are other commodities that,
Yes.
that were on the restriction list, like let's talk about rice, for instance. So it's not just looking at the dairy industry, it's also looking at a wider picture, smuggling.
Rice is a little bit different, because you see, rice in and of itself, once you've added value to it, you can compare like with like. You don't need always to add a lot more value before you're able to sell your rice. So if you have smuggled rice from places where you don't know, competing with the main rice, of course, the theory is that it will damage your ability to sell the local rice, but that's not the case. Nigerians are now asking for local rice by name in the market, in the case of rice, because it is proving to have a superior taste to some of the things, and people are afraid of plastic rice, afraid of all sorts of imports, that they would rather take the one they know was planted and really grew, and therefore ended up in the supermarket or in the open market, and is hygienic enough for them to consume.
Okay, now in closing,
Yes.
where in the commodity boards that were discontinued in the 80s, do they have a place to play in promoting the production of dairy products in Nigeria?
Yes. Why were they disbanded? Because of corruption. Because the government could not control it anymore. And during the IBB regime, they got rid of them. They got rid of them without replacing them with anything. The agri-transformation agenda was hoping to bring in a new version, having corporates actually run the marketing boards and so on and play that role, but we really need a replacement for that today.
Okay. Mr. Soji Apampa, it's been a pleasure having you on Business Express. I promise you there will be a follow-up conversation after this.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine.
Same here.
Thank you.
And moving on, federal government to empower 20,000 youths and women in 6 states of the Federation in its agro-processing, productivity enhancement and livelihood support projects. The program, which will be sponsored by the World Bank, is expected to create additional 700,000 indirect jobs in the next 5 years. Details with Musa Baba Aliu.
The project is designed to enhance agricultural activities of small and medium-scale farmers and improve value addition in 6 states. Youth and women, including persons with special needs, are to benefit more from the 5-year project. Heather Akani is the officer in charge of youth and women empowerment. She says the beneficiaries will be empowered on best agronomic practices, value addition, and marketing of produce and products.
Each of the participating states is looking at 3 value chains: one for food security, a value chain for food security, a value chain for export potential, a value chain for livelihood improvement. So all of this really go a long way in each of the states.
The beneficiaries will be assisted to develop business plan as they will be supported with matching grants supporting technology.
So we are in the process of selecting those who have not benefited from any other projects so that we will meet the target of reducing the level of unemployment and reduce the level of poverty.
Apart from the 400 we're going to do this year, we're going to do another set next year. And after training, we're going to empower, and we're going to link each trainee to a mentor to ensure that this investment is, is sustainable and it is viable at the end of the day.
In the course of the project implementation, about 90 units of simple design aggregation center will be constructed and linked to market information and commodity exchange platforms.
And from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the second day of losses. The NSE OSHA index depreciated by 27,718.26 basis points, depreciating by 0.37%. 251.9 million shares were traded, valued at 4.1 billion naira in 3,937 deals. Market capitalization stood at 13.5 trillion naira. Top trades, we had Zenith Bank, FNBH and UBA. The gainers were led by Julius Berger, FO and CNN, while the decliners, Nestle, NB and Dangote Sugar. Meanwhile, talks between U.S. and Chinese trade officials seeking ways to end a year-long trade war ended on Wednesday with a brief response from China's Foreign Ministry to U.S. President Donald Trump warning not to stall. The trade war between the world's largest economies has disrupted global supply chains and shaken financial market as each side has slapped tariff on billions of dollars. Stocks futures rise as investors await federal decision on interest cuts. Bosede Abel has an outlook.
Africa's stocks opened the last day of trading in the month of July mixed. Namibia's overall index and Tunisia's Tunidex appreciated, while Nairobi All-Share, South Africa's JSE Top 40 and Ghana's JSE Composite were negative. In Europe, the Federal Reserve is widely expected to cut interest rates by a quarter point for the first time since the financial crisis over a decade ago. The expected easing has supported risk asset prices worldwide. European stocks traded around the flat line in early trading as investors await an interest rate decision from the U.S. Federal Reserve. Asia stocks also slipped on renewed trade fears led by Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, which fell 1.31% as all major indices closed in the red. U.S. stocks were higher as market participants braced for the outcome of the Federal Reserve's meeting later in the session. Dow futures rose 70 points, indicating a positive open of more than 66 points. Futures on the S&P and Nasdaq were both slightly higher.
Thank you, Abosede. Gold holds on track for a third monthly gain ahead of federal decision. Time now to see the price of gold and other commodities on the global markets. We now take a trip to the foreign exchange market. Let's see the numbers. Well, that's it on this edition of Business Express. You can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is @NTA News Now. Don't forget the hashtag BizX. The program returns on Friday. I am Amina Nujain. Thank you for watching.